Welcome back to Doc Loyal Talks Comics, guys, and it's time for my weekly comic book haul. I got a pretty big week this week, but I got some really great books and some stuff that I think you're going to absolutely love. So let's go ahead and get into it with my pick of the week, which is Battle Beast issue number 8. This is Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley, and you get to see the continuation of the fight between the Juggernaut and Colossus. And you get to see this awesome splash page of Battle Beast. He absolutely just pops in this series. You get the story of Battle Beast still trying to find something or someone worthy to kill him, to take him out. And he just craves battle. He just wants to fight. And something about that is refreshing. It's almost like taking Wolverine back to a simpler time as a character. He's just itching for a fight. So you get to see Battle Beast just take it to them, both the Colossus and the Juggernaut. And the Juggernaut keeps saying, you know, very clever, but we'll see how clever you feel when my tusk pierce your lifeless body. And he says, you keep making threats and yet I still draw breath. And she says, it's only a matter of time, creature. And you get on with it then. And meanwhile, Prince Salaka goes to lead his people away from the city and try to salvage what's left of his society now that he's finally gotten his legs and his body back. And Battle Beast, he asks Battle Beast to lead him away from the city so that there's something left of his home. And Colossus says, I thought you were through waiting. He says, I care not for these people or their land. The fight will lead where it leads, but I desire a most honorable death. The ruins of this world would be a worthy sacrifice to that end. But if you're not going to end my life, I'll conclude this farce of a battle very quickly. And he just stabs the Colossus right in the head with a massive blade. Guys, I'm not going to spoil the rest of this book, but this is hands down my best pick of the week and the most fun book that I read this week. If you're not reading Battle Beast, you're missing out. I never read the regular Invincible run, but I've seen Battle Beast on the animated Amazon Prime series, and he looked like a very interesting character. I figured I'd pick this up when it first came out last year to see what Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley were going to do. And in my opinion, this book is absolutely a 10 out of a 10. All right, next up, we have G.I. Joe issue number 21, written by Joshua Williamson with art by Tom Riley. And this is a homage to the silent issue number 21. We will be homaging that until G.I. Joe as a property dies. So you get Storm Shadow and Scarlet and Jinx all in this story, and they're trying to find a mysterious weapon that can help the Arashikage out. And she sends a message to Snowjob. The weapon is secure here. No movements by the Arashikage or its leader. Threat level high but calm. If I leave now, the cover will be compromised. Here comes Cobra to attack. They want what Storm Shadow and Scarlet are guarding. They want it bad. So they send agents of chaos down. They send ninjas. They send, here comes Cobra Commander with his hand that's pulsing with energon. And they eventually fight their way in, even though Scarlet and Storm Shadow and Jinx get a lot of villains put on the ground and in the ground. So we get to see this old master, and he has been tasked with keeping this weapon safe. And in the end, he ends up trying to protect from Cobra. But they attack him, and he falls. No, not dead, but he's done for this battle. And Storm Shadow confronts Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander tries to blast him out of existence with his newfound energon powers, and Storm Shadow tries to land a death blow only to be blocked by a sword made of pure energon. And Storm Shadow almost cuts through the energon sword, but just not quite. But you get to see all of these amazing panels that give off so much emotion. The issue 21 that Larry Hama wrote and penciled, and I think Klaus Janson inked it back in the day. That book was built out of necessity. It was behind on schedule. They had to push it out, and the book ended up shipping without any lettering. It was simply a snafu. It was an oversight, but it elevates, and I have found this out time and time and time again. It elevates the artist and pushes them to be able to tell a story silently, without word bubbles, lettering, without the words that the writer uses and the artist molds into something more. It pushes every single artist that has ever done an issue 21 to be a better storyteller, to be someone who knows what they are trying to bring to the comic industry as an artist. And through that, we get another amazing issue number 21. So thank you, Skybound, Image, Energon Universe. Thank you for this book. It was amazing. We got to see the ninja heritage of the Arashikaji and of Storm Shadow, and perhaps a hero fell, but that's for another book for another time. All right, next up is the continuingly strange The Thing on the Doorstep by Simon Burks and Willie Roberts, and you get to see the continuation of this story from H.P. Lovecraft put into a modern comic book series from Image. And Daniel and Edward are still friends. And Daniel will go to the ends of the earth to save his friend from what he feels like are the dark energies of Edward's wife. But you hear Edward speaking about Lovecraftian Cthulhu things. And he speaks of his wife actually stepping into his body and then kind of teleporting him somewhere else to go through maybe like the trials of Hercules. It's not meant to be that way, but it's a Herculean effort for him to get back to his body. She takes over, and in the end, he comes back, but it gets harder and harder every time. And Daniel says, wait, you're talking about her father, your wife's father, but he's dead, is he not? Ephraim is Asenath's dead father, correct? And Edward says, no, I believe Ephraim is still alive and feeding off the cathedrals of the living. He sits in silence in our house, pretending to be someone he is not. This book is really, it's given me an idea of the Lovecraftian stories, which I have not really read a whole lot of that stuff, but it's given me an idea that maybe I would want to go back and read the prose things that have been published by Lovecraft. Those stories are very much science fiction, but a little bit of fact mixed in, and they were great for the time from what I have heard and what I have understood. And they are very trippy. I would probably say that Lovecraft had taken some inducing medications at times, hint, hint, cough, cough, to kind of dig himself deeper into this world, just like Edward had begun to do, and then his wife took and twisted everything. So what was a beautiful thing between the two of them, an understanding, an academic adventure, now has turned into something evil and sadistic, where his wife is trying to control him and maybe bring something back one of these times from this other world. So This book continues to get better and better and better with every issue. The art by Willie Roberts is it's simplistic, but at the same time, it emotes very, very well. You can tell that these characters are afraid, that they're happy, that they're sad. You can tell Daniel's love and concern for his best friend, Edward. It just shines through. And in the end, you get this really creepy image for what's coming up for the cover to issue number 4 of 5. So at this point, guys, I would just wait for the trade. But if you have not helped yourself to this particular book, what are you waiting for? All right, next up is Walking Dead Deluxe issue number 135. And this is Robert Kirkman, Charlie Adward, and Stefano Guardino. And you get Lydia here of the Whisperers. So the Whisperers are becoming a bigger thing. Meanwhile, you get to see Jesus interrogate Lydia. Meanwhile, back at the farm, literally, Carl has protected Sophia, but the kids that he was attacking with a shovel, he almost killed them. He went too far. And so the mother of these kids, Carl Grimes, tried to murder our sons. He beat him with a shovel, wouldn't stop. He was beating them to death, and he's a monster. And he says, I was just trying to stop them. They were hurting her. They were hurting Sophia. And she says, it was Sophia that was attacking them. They were just defending themselves. She'd done it before. They were scared of her. Your daughter is out of control. And Carl says, that's not what happened. And he says, I was just trying to save her. Meanwhile, Jesus is trying to get an idea from Lydia about who the Whisperers are. Although they have not been named yet, that's who this group is going to be, is they're going to turn out to be the Whisperers, and Alpha and Beta are going to come into the series, and it's going to be so good. So much fun. So through the rest of the issue, you get the fallout of what Carl did, and Maggie ends up putting him down in the dungeon. He goes and tells these people they can go screw themselves because your sons were the ones that started it. I don't feel bad, not one bit, about what I did. Your sons should be the ones that are locked up. And he puts him down in the dungeon, but he's not alone. He ends up being found by Lydia, who's down there as well. So we went from all-out war to then we jumped a little while ahead, and now we're gearing up for the Whisperer War. And like I said, I want to say around issue 150 is when the series kind of just started dropping for me. So we still have a good year and a half or so of really, really amazing stories before it kind of just goes to meh. But hey, this book is great. If you've never seen it in color, it makes a lot of these scenes pop. Now there's a lot of scenes in the original book that don't need color, but it just adds another level. It adds another dimension to these books and allows people that love color to enjoy them on a whole new level. All right, guys, we're knocking this pile out. The next book we have is Venom, issue number 257, Death Spiral, issue 8 of 9. This is written by Charles Soule with art by Javier Pena. I believe it was Javier. Well, tell me who it is. Javier Pena. And we get the feast, the continuation of Carnage's attack onto the feast. What do they call that? The Feast Center. Oh, that's real simple. I don't know how I could have forgotten that. But Aunt Anna and Aunt May are putting on something at the Feast Center and trying to feed a bunch of people, trying to protect a bunch of people. And in the end, you get to see Torcar, I don't know what you would call him, Torment and Carnage together. And they're trying to kill the two ants because that completes the next level of the spiral. And she ends up spilling hot soup all over Torment Carnage, and then Torment says, I don't even feel that. I'm not burned. It's maybe a little warm. And he says, and Carnage says, that's how it is with a symbiote, Torment. When you've got the bond, nothing can hurt you. And eventually, Flash Thompson, Anti-Venom, comes in and shows that, yes, something can hurt Carnage and Torment, but at the same time, he sends the symbiote off to kill the two old ladies, and Torment tries to fight Anti-Venom. Meanwhile, Eddie Brock and Dylan are in the hospital, and they see what's going on and the damage that's being caused by Carnage and Torment. And one guy says, "It's two of them, two of the goopy ones. What do you call them? The aliens." And somebody said, "Symbiote, sir." "Yeah, that's it. A red one and a white one, tearing the whole place up. I didn't even get my soup, and it was Italian wedding. It looked real good." And so he's mad that he didn't get his soup. And meanwhile, Carnage does what Carnage does best and kills outside of the spiral. And so Torment loses his mind and says, "You killed outside the spiral. If I get too many spirals at once, it will confuse me, and I won't know where I'm supposed to go. I have to take a minute to pull myself back together." And he says, "Did you not hear me? What are you doing?" And Carnage says, "I'm not really sure what you're referring to." And Torment says, "This was a mistake." And Flash says, "What?" And he said, "I wasn't talking to you." And so at the last minute, Torment pulls Carnage back from killing Aunt Anna and Aunt May. And he says, "I told you not to kill anyone else. Like you said, your kills are my kills. The spirals, they add up, and it's too much for me. Killing is not indiscriminate. It is precise, done to achieve a specific goal. As the spirals end, when they feel alone, I feel less alone." And so in the end, he says, "You're chaos." And Carnage says, "Now, well, hold on here, buddy." And he says, "I am control." And he ends up blasting the symbiote apart with the Shocker's glove. And Spidey is left to defend against Torment while Mary Jane goes to try to save Aunt Anna and Aunt May, but the blast from the Shocker's glove ends up hitting MJ and knocking her out. And Torment ends up stabbing Spidey with a couple of tendrils of Carnage before Carnage goes completely away. And Spidey falls with a bad wound to his chest. And Carnage says, "I can help you, Peter. You're dying. Your Anna's about to die. I'm about to die too. Save us. Save these lives." And spoiler, not spoiler, we get a new Carnage at the end of the issue. So I'm not going to give that away, but we get a new host for Carnage. And that leads into part 9 of 9, which is going to be Amazing Spider-Man number 27, which comes out next week. So overall, guys, this Death Spiral storyline has really reinvigorated the series to me. Now, am I going to continue reading Venom? And I can't read Carnage because that book's already been canceled. But am I going to continue to read Venom after this? No, I'm not. But it's provided a very cohesive, straightforward story that hasn't got lost in the weeds, at least not for me. So can't wait to see how this finishes up next week. And then there's a one-shot, kind of an Omega one-shot that wraps everything up and we find out who Torment is. All right, the last book that we're going to talk about in this video is Nectar issue number 2 by Jeremy Robinson. And the art is done by Anapolo Martello and layouts by Francesco Francini. And you get to see again that these butterflies are just wreaking havoc. And there's a priest, and he says, I don't believe that the butterflies can be causing this. This girl is possessed by Satan. This girl is not of herself. So in the end, you get to see that he goes outside as the scientist is trying to figure out what's going on, and he says that he's read about something like this before in Strasbourg. A woman named Frau Trofia began to dance one day, and she could not stop. For 3 days, she danced alone, and then it spread. Days later, there were dozens. At first, dozens, and then soon hundreds in total. 400 people succumbed, and only death had the power to stop them. So then the priest goes outside. Science is man's vain attempt to bottle God, Amos, and that too is Satan's work. So he goes outside and he finds these butterflies and he says, I'm not afraid of you. These frighten me the least. And then it gets him, it stabs him. And he says, get you back. And he says, hear ye, you good people of Misery Island, come and hear the glorious news of God's will. We have planted the seed, and now it's time to reap the harvest. So they all come together, and meanwhile, Amos, the doctor, is inside, and he sees that Hannah was dancing now too, and she wasn't bitten, or at least according to her, she wasn't bitten, but then they see a butterfly at the top. So this book here has been really good. You wouldn't think that killer butterflies would really interest a whole lot of people, but this book is absolutely amazing, and I can't think of a better horror story that I've read in a while. Vault Comics is absolutely just knocking it out of the park. So it's only issue 2, guys. You can probably find issue 1. It was hot for just a minute, but now I think it's cooled down just a little bit. So go back and check out Nectar by Jeremy Robinson and Martello and Francini from Vault Comics. If you're only on issue 2, you got plenty of time to jump on. All right, and to finish this off, guys, we've got 2 books that we're going to talk about in next videos. Here we have the facsimile of Silver Surfer, issue number 2. This is by Stan Lee and John Buscema, with inks by Joe Sinnott and letters by Sam Rosen. And it's apparently Silver Surfer fighting weird alien creatures. So that's coming up in a greatest hits video, because that is definitely one of the greatest hits of the Silver Age. And the next book that we have in the, I don't think I'm going to do this as a greatest hit, although it is, but this will be an initial assessment, and this is John Byrne's Man of Steel facsimile, issue number 1 from 1986. And you get to see here, it's a 6-part mini by Byrne and Dick Giordano, and it is pretty much a reimagining of the Man of Steel, his origin post-crisis. So if you want to check this out, it's definitely worth your time and your effort, but I'll do a initial assessment video on this. It's kind of a greatest hits initial assessment, if that makes sense. So anyway, guys, that is it for this video. I hope you've loved this video and the content that I'm bringing you each and every day. So hit the like, hit the subscribe, join the channel, join the community. Let's talk about these comic books that we love more and more each day. The classic books, the new books, the upcoming books. I'm going to start doing maybe some videos talking about FOC, or at least talking about the books that are coming out the week, you know, the Sunday or so before they come out. So let's see if we can get to that, guys. Working on that kind of behind the scenes, and we'll see what we can come up with. Anyway, thanks for joining me, and I will see you guys next video. Thanks for watching.